This your boy Mayoral, DMV has the news, and who do we have right here?
I am Dr. Rhonda L. Hamilton.
Doctor.
Dr. Rhonda Hamilton.
Doctor. Nice to meet you, Miss Doctor. How are you doing?
Oh, the pleasure's all mine.
The pleasure's all you. So this is a different interview than I usually do. I usually do interviews that's like in the community, the neighborhoods and stuff like that. I'm actually interviewing somebody that is running for mayor. Yes, for 2026.
Yes.
This is very different for me. I'm actually kind of nervous. Right?
Don't be. Don't be. I'm Ward 8 Southeast all day, every day.
Okay,
I just,
Ward 8. And I was going to get to
put the hat on.
I was definitely going to get to that part too. I was just going to get to that part. So just tell me about yourself, because a lot of people like to say where they lived in DC or whatever, but we want to know your life in DC. And, how was you raised? What neighborhood did you grow up, or what area, and so forth?
Okay, sure. I was born and raised and brought home from the hospital in a place called Chesapeake Terrace, which is, with all this gentrification in the city and so much turnover, a lot of those communities are starting to be something different. But I'm pleased to report that we just celebrated our 14th old school reunion, which is a culmination of many of the communities that I grew up in and around. I grew up on 4th Street, and we rep 6th Street as well, Southeast, across from St. Thomas More Church.
Okay.
I went to Henley Elementary School. I went to Friendship before it was P.R. Harris, or it was P.R. Harris, it was Friendship, then it went back to P.R. Harris. And my big mama said, okay, we got to get this one through school, because even though I was an A student, growing up in Ward 8, it's not hard to get off track or, peer pressure. And, we were just being youngins, and that's why I recognize what's going on today. I can relate because it takes us some time coming from these humble beginnings to find ourselves. But I was fortunate to have a village around me. We grew up in a very tight-knit community at a time in Southeast where, if you can believe it, we could leave our front doors open. We lived on the ground floor, and our building had 2 entrances. So our building was the building that you ditched the cab through, those days. So the reality of us growing up in a community in Ward 8 Southeast and having such an extended family, many of our families are generational. My aunts and uncles, they went to Ballou. I ended up being sent over to Northwest to go to Dunbar. So I finished my last year of junior high school at Langley, across from McKinley Tech, and I ended up at Dunbar.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but my family, I've got generations that have come through Henley, Hart, Ballou.
Okay.
So by the time I hit, it was Henley, Friendship, and then Dunbar.
Wow.
So we changed the paradigm a little bit, but yeah.
Was there a reason why they wanted you to go to school in Northwest opposed to Southeast?
I'm the daughter of schizophrenia, and what that means is that my mom had visible voices and hallucinations when I was growing up, so I had to find myself, because I was one of these youngins that was told going to be a statistic, because we don't understand these fancy words like schizophrenia. I've been in mental health on the ground for the last 10 years because of that. It was important that we helped our community get educated about the reality that coming from where we come from. But in doing that, there were so many that we see along the journey, because she, her rites of passage, she got out of the St. Elizabeth, went to the House of Ruth, community connections, Fairfax, that's a part of our journey as well. But doing that, I realized that there were so many other broken souls. And my mother would always feel so ashamed when I would come and sit at her group meetings or come see her. I wanted to see her. I wanted her to know that it didn't matter. And I credit that to my grandmother, because I'm sure I would have grew up with a lot of resentment. A child needs their mother, and they just don't understand.
Yeah.
But then you learn it cycles. Her mother left when she was 4 years old, and didn't come back into her life until she was 26, and whatever her journey was, which I do know, but she went through some things herself. But she was always trying to be mom. And I can't imagine what these mothers must go through when they have to trust extended family and society to raise their child, because they got to deal with their own. And if we don't help these families and our citizens that go through to understand their layers, then they automatically think mental health, I got it. You can go through a grieving moment and really experience something of a depression, anxiety, a temporary diminishment of your mental capacity. And that's okay. And we've got to be able to get more people to stable understandings that it's okay. You know, I wish that we could be there and catch them before they pull the trigger. You know, all of them are not going through these, but many of them are just kind of shadows that are just trying to blend or trying to have purpose because they were not fortunate to have somebody fighting for them before they made these reckless decisions, and it becomes a domino effect. You know, but being on the ground for 10 years, we were over in a community called Cedar Heights. It was the old Butler Gardens. They tell me it was notorious. But, you know, when you come from it, they were all notorious in my day. Valley Green on the bus, you had to duck when you took that turn because those rocks was coming through the window. And then I was uptown and being from Southeast. So I thank God that we weren't pulling guns then, because I might not be able to sit before you today, or I might have been doing time, you know, because my father would always say, you need to hold your tongue. You know, you need to hold your tongue. But I had to explain to him, back then in these streets, you had to let him know. And he said, I don't want to hear that mess from you. You're going to school. You're going to do what you have to do. And so, and I make that point because even as an A student and even with folks in my corner, I was still sneaking out the window. You know, what were we going to fake? You know, we had to get to the go-go, Chuck. Panorama Room on Friday night.
I was going to bring up to you, who was your favorite go-go band?
You know what? God rest his soul. DC of Essence, right, is family, right? We're family by marriage. I mean, family. And the reality is that I was a Chuck baby. You know, that Panorama Room on Fridays, oh my goodness. But Essence, you know, is the backdrop of my come up. You know, little Benny, my first love in my life, you know, was all infatuated with go-go, and he just was sure he was going to be some version between Benny and funk. And, you know, I was daddy's girl, so I can sneak out, but I had my limitations, you know, so I wasn't going to be at too far. But Cherries, you know, up by the Martin Luther King, up by the library on Atlantic Street. We partied over at the Coliseum when I snuck out and wasn't supposed to. So that's why I said when I look at these kids, they don't have the true DC experience. They boundaries. They beefing with the same people in the same community. And it's like, what are you guys doing? You can't go 2 blocks to the left and can't go, you don't even know your city. You know, and then you add to that the fact that we're graduating them, and we're going to get to that. But when I saw all of this as an advocate, you know, we did wonderful with our reading programs. And because when my mom had her stroke, we went down to social services. She had been working. She had come out of St. Elizabeth after about 2 decades. And then she got a job through an organization that had a contract with the government. So she worked in commerce in the mailroom for almost 20 years. So she did 20 in, I say, and 20 out. And so and a proud woman, mind you, she's on makeup or get back. She wanted to raise her daughter. So I'm like, I ain't going to be that little girl no more, but I'm here, you know. And so it became a different journey. But when I watched how she showed up in the world and how the world received her, I realized that I had to do something, but I couldn't be that Ward 8 person ready to knock everybody upside the head for staring at my mother or whispering or whatever. I said, you know what? They don't have any education. Because if they knew her, they would see her beyond her voices. And what I realized is that I was fortunate to be able to get my education, go out in the world, find me, and not kind of exist through that to the point where I didn't escape it. You know, and I had people fighting for me. Yeah.
That's great. That's terrific. So being that you are more into the mental health and the community and stuff like that, I do have one question before we change the subject.
Okay.
Do you believe that the youth or just people in general growing up in DC, seeing the things that they see growing up, do they suffer from like PTSD?
Absolutely.
Like, you know, you hear a lot about this like in war stories and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
But like, what about our own communities?
Absolutely. You know, I think that if we could rewind and actually teach the generation before them about the reality of having that, do your work, recognize, acknowledge, we might have been able to save a lot more of our youth. But coming through murder capital of the world, coming through a crack epidemic, and just the reality, the hurt on the little man's face when his mama is the one on the drugs and doing everybody in the community, and trying to figure out how to process that and still hold his head up. And so I absolutely think that we are a city plagued with PTSD. And I'm not making any excuses. A lot of times when I'm in these settings, people that get real uncomfortable. I have a background in sales, so I know in 3 minutes where this conversation is going, right? I have to know, right? That's how I eat. I can tell when they're uncomfortable, but I like to believe that through that uncomfortableness, they're going to come through it, and they're going to say, oh, she real. Because a lot of times people, once the walls come down, we can have a good time, and then we can really find ourselves in it. But being from D.C., we always say, oh, yeah, Bama, she a Bama, they perpetrating, There's a lot of people perpetrating a fraud and have been for quite some time, and we didn't used to be that type of a city, right? And so with our children, I feel like they're trying to mimic whatever they see, like it's cool to go to jail because the guys in jail, you tough. But the reality is that I have never visibly understood the phenomenon of abuse on the level that it is in this city for our young people, right? Women traditionally go through, you in the day when you heard rape, you thought it was the woman. But now there are a lot of young people and old people trying to process that and still get through. In order to get to the other side, you got to go through to get through. But there's so much that happens along the way. So I absolutely agree with the fact that we are definitely living through variations of trauma. Who was it? I think Harvard did a study. And what they found was that trauma exists in the fetus in the womb, right? When you look at our ancestral histories, I hear, we talk about the generational divide. So when I get the call to come in and look at the young, say, oh, yeah, you're off the hook. Can you come and see them and do something about them? And I have to educate the parents that environmental wellness is real too. You thinking it's the child, but I'm checking you out and your attitude and how you talking and how you carrying yourself. And you're not holding yourself accountable, but you're trying to make this child that you raised that you let the social media raise, that you have not done the work really. You just been talking at them. Every generation, they get a little more emotional. We didn't have the option. So we made it through. So I say that to say that I hear a lot of generational folks will say, he ain't nothing like I was. I earned the right. Just arguments over things that we could have just communicated differently. But there is this entitlement, I always say, for our older generation. They don't feel like they have to care or know. You're going to relate to them how they want you to relate to them. And I'm like, look, I understand the respect thing, but it's a little different with this younger generation because they're more emotional. They're more reactionary. And they haven't had the understanding of the mental health piece of it. In their world, mental health is crazy, right? In my world, mental health was crazy. I'm the daughter of the crazy lady, right? Until I grew up and knew better and learned better. My grandmother didn't keep her foot on me, on my neck, and my father didn't fight for me to let the world swallow up my mother, right? And so I think that a lot of youth come through situations, when the young girls and the young boys, trying to find themselves, and sometimes they age out of that, and they just stuck, and they just, they go with it. And you don't just approach them and call them out. You build a relationship. So in the community where we were, Butler Gardens, we were over there for probably 3-4 years. And when we went over there, I went to just do support groups for the women, because the little girl behind the counter at social service, when my mom had her stroke and they retired her early, she did not want to stop. She didn't have a choice. And the little girl, when she went to go get her Medicaid, because she wasn't quite 65 yet, and the little mama was, and all of this, and I don't care how wild and outside I was, we grew up with structure. You don't raise up against an adult. But see, my mom was standing right there with visible voices, visible hallucinations, and nobody standing next to her. I'm in the corner trying to get up to the counter because her number got called. I'm in the background being Miss Career Woman. But this was one of the trips of the transformation of my life. See, I thought I was going to be on a beach by 45 because I was a top producer. I'm Caldwell Banker's first African-American real estate broker under the franchise in PG County. And so that meant that, my feet hit the ground and I kept going. But Mom was still, beholden to the city and the city services and case managers that were borrowing money from her because she thought they had a friendship, but they were just taking advantage of her vulnerability.
Right.
And, oh, Miss Gina, I'll be there tomorrow. I'll bring you your medicine in. And, she's soft-spoken, never heard her voice go over 6, but she gave birth to the Hellraiser, excuse my French. And that's the daddy in me, So, yeah, I think that our children, if they had a fair opportunity to really sit in a room with someone who genuinely and authentically cared, we would see a lot different. But we are cycles into this. We're not just generationally yoked, but there is a such thing as ancestral trauma. And the challenge with not graduating them with strong, rooted understandings of education and perspective and critical thinking, they miss all of that problem solving. And they go straight to wherever, their reality is. And if we don't rescue them from that, we end up seeing a lot of what we're seeing, and then they get exploited, And I remember telling my first little group of kids that we were only reason I started with the kids was because they were, you B-I-T-C-H, you da-da-da-da. And I'm getting out the car with my box and my volunteers. We're going to meet in the community center. And we had a support group, but I couldn't get into the center because I'm looking at the babies. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. We thought we was coming over here for the adults, but maybe we got to go talk to these babies,
Right.
And what caught me the most is the crap game going on, traditional hood stuff. The crap game going on, and they over here egging them on, and these kids no more than 8, 9 years old, ready to take each other's head off. And so, me being Granny's baby, this being, don't matter if it's not the hood I grew up in, it's a hood. And it was, familiar. And like I said, we didn't come up pulling guns. We came up showing respect and just, it is what it is. And if we got into a fight, then we came back the next day. Maybe we was going to be okay, maybe we weren't, but we got to live to tell the story.
Right.
So that's why I say it really trips me out when I see people of my generation and a little older acting like they forgot. They got their Lexus car notes and their mortgage payments, and now all of a sudden these children are menace. And I shudder to think when I hear folks say, oh, Donald Trump should be locking them up good for them. And I say, really? Really, you God-fearing person, you sitting up in church, or maybe not? When you get to them pearly gates and they put that dirt on that pine box, I want to know if you truly are of your faith. I want to know if you think you're going to get up there and then he's going to tell you, go ahead and, after you say go ahead and lock them up. Where were you? Why didn't you come back? You know what I'm saying? Why didn't you stroke the pen and write a check and adopt a child and see them through college?
Right.
There's so many conversations we can have. But yeah, I absolutely think that PTSD is a perfect analogy of what we see going on, along with a lot of this other imposition of trauma that we see when people let you down, when they keep letting you down. Sometimes it's hard to keep getting back up from that.
Right.
And you get angry, you get bitter. And the thing about it, the children and the youth are using their guns. But I walk this city daily, and, as a housing advocate, I don't know what it is. We got a city full of bitter women that look like me. And I have to come in and kind of help the community mamas and the professional mamas find themselves. Because if you guys can't get together, we ain't got no hope for these children. These children not stupid.
And the woman is the nurturer, the one.
The women's supposed to be the nurturer, and I have to keep reminding people of my generation the baton been passed. We the big mamas of the day. I mean, I know we still being cute, and, and we cute, and we can be cute. We can just do it differently, but that doesn't alleviate us of our responsibilities.
Right.
And so when I came to do the work, and I start looking at the failures of the allocation of monies, and I'm looking at the statistics, and folks tapping me on my shoulder, do little community organizational leaders, and folks, you need to get in politics. And I said, no, I didn't come out to do politics. This ain't my first career. It's not even my second career. It's not even my third career. It was just a labor of love because my mom had the stroke. And I needed an environment for her to exist there where she could still feel purposeful, right? I wanted her not to sink back into that shadow of this woman with mental health challenges, and a lot of the voices that she dealt with had to do with her experiences, and that part of her trauma that was never really released. And, yesterday, mental health was the Caucasian person in the white coat, and you on the other side of the desk. And it's just something in our society when we grow up, white is right and black is problems or wrong. And that was kind of passed along. So when my generation came along, it was like, I'm smarter than you. I'm smart as you. Like, we can do this together. And I started to see the transformation that we can be around all kinds of people as long as we know who we are. Sometimes we get around people and we try to become something different. And so for me, my reality is that Dr. Hamilton shows up, and the folk that know me, they get a little, oh, she this and that. No. It's okay. There's a Dr. Hamilton and there's a Rhonda. And when you get of a certain age, you're supposed to be able to walk in the boardroom or on the block. So I always got my cape with me. But the reality is that sometimes it's uncomfortable for people where we come from. And so when I came here and I saw this territorial stuff going on, and you can't go two steps to the left, and, oh no, Miss Rhonda, we beefing with that. I said, boy, if you don't come on here so I can go over here and see your mother, y'all better not get to beefing while we out there. And we came in ducking bullets. But I needed my mom. I had a long conversation with my mother, and we would look at the news and the yellow tape would keep going up. I kept saying, what in the world is going on? And who's with those children? Who's with those families? Because I can't imagine. We just, kept seeing it. And we started the organization, and I asked my mother, are you going to be okay with us going to the community and really showing them what it looked like? Just pull the Band-Aid off so that we can start reaching some of them, so that they could understand that you are not here, but you're certainly on the spectrum.
Right.
And we got to help you. And it's okay. Because if we can help you find your stability, your quality of life, then you got a shot. But the problem with that is that, again, how are you going to feel good about saving? And we had standing room only in our programs. We couldn't just show up and put mental health on the door because anybody getting in that line. The stigma is still what it is, even it's worse in the community, and they don't want to wear the labels. But if I created a reading program, support group, a men's group, after school program, a day camp. We did so much with them. Golf, we took them to golf. They didn't even know who Tiger Woods was. And that blew my mind. So I'm looking at a city managing this $1 billion budget, going into communities that don't look like it's frozen in time. And the least you can do is educate them. They don't know who Tiger Woods is? Are you kidding me?
Right.
And everything that they got to deal with to get up, to walk through and get past to get to the building, and you're not going to educate them? Yeah, I felt the way.
Yeah.
I felt the way.
Okay. So the next question I have right here is, okay, I see the things that you do for the community. I do really appreciate that. I'm really highly for it, but this is a different level of, like, somebody would probably say, well, why don't you go for council member? Or,
oh, they did.
Yeah.
They did.
Like, start slow and then work yourself back up, and, just get people to know you on a political level. So why do you automatically want to go straight and become the next mayor of Washington, D.C.?
So this is my fourth career. I had three before. Real estate broker.
Yes.
I'm an insurance broker.
Okay.
Mental health advocate now. But before all of that, I was in sales, heavy, right? So timeshare, you know, if I had to go sell ice to an Eskimo, I was going to eat, you know. So I came from that type of bossing up, right? All of my sales training, all of my experience, all of my work, all I've known is that 3% of the population will do what 97% won't do. So I've never been the type that's going to fit into a box so you could be comfortable. What I saw is that because I had been asked for about 4 years to run, had interactions with our wonderful council members, to be nice, and calling it out. And the smugness from the mayor and the dismissiveness when we would put case after case before them. And it didn't matter. And when I knew we were in trouble, two things. 12-year-olds started doing carjackings and murder, they said. 14-year-olds beating people down in the middle of the street, seniors. And the reality of the drug epidemic. We had upwards of 500,000 people registered to vote in D.C. Every time that local cycle came around, we saw no more than 200,000. So we brought Eleanor Norton, or invited Eleanor Norton over to Anacostia Park back in 2018 and say, what gives? It's 2018. I'm in these communities. These folks are waiting 45 days for a mental health assessment. A lot can happen before then. Our capacity was so full. You know, I'm holding on to these, I'm visiting them in their home to check on them, do a home check, checking on mom, you know. The baby holding on to my leg at the front door, and he home. He going out the door with me, you know, as far as he feel. So the reality of the cycles and the dismissiveness from the leadership and the lack of education and the fact that we had already resorted to, I'm just not going to vote. All the animosity, all the anger and the emotions, it just didn't make sense to me. So I'm supposed to be on the beach at 45, right? So we're going to do this, we're going to do this.
Exactly.
You know, and so what I saw was it made no sense to go and fit into a box to prove what I already see present day. And the fact that it took me 4 years to come forward, people saw something in me that I didn't, because I didn't come out to do this. Like I said, I was going on the beach. I'm going to get mom stable, you know, bought her a nice little property. She's going to be good. We just got to get her back on track. And that's what I thought I was doing. But they say that's how you know God has a sense of humor.
Right.
You start making plans. And so when I looked at the landscape, I've always, you know, known the numbers. I've always known the business. I've always been a reader. I've always been a doer, right? When you're negotiating millions of dollars for clients that come from all over the world, because, you know, we have the federal government and the military here. So my clients spanned across the board. And I wasn't just an agent. I'm a broker. I've run a real estate school training people to do this, right? And so when you do it on that level, and I had a 95% repeat referral base.
Right.
I was determined that everybody that came in front of me that wanted to get into real estate or get a house was going to. You know, and I have clients now that text me and thank me because they didn't understand that word equity. They didn't understand what they were getting into. I had a responsibility to make sure that they did.
Okay.
So if you get to know me, and I'm hoping that'll be the case, you'll know that I don't mind telling you I'm a boss. You know, but they say it costs to be the boss.
Right.
And so what I saw was I saw people running. James Butler, I'm sure he doesn't mind me being transparent, and he got knocked off the ballot. And I'm behind the scene putting him back on the ballot because that's just what I do. It's not because I thought that maybe, this candidate, this my candidate. No, I wasn't in it like that. I was on the ground doing the work. But what I was concerned about is that the mayor was being so dismissive and the media was on lock, you know? And when we were over fighting in those households with mold and ceilings falling in and rodent feces and no hot water in the winter, no air in the summer. And then the reality that we had these slumlords and we lining them all up to take them down to housing hearings because they didn't know the process. Oh, but we got an agency for that. And then you watch them go to landlord-tenant court and they, Miss Rhonda, I can't take my baby, just the reality that we would leave people sitting in that and not really be accountable was a problem for me. And so when I looked at it and I looked at the landscape, and probably the last time someone said, well, you're not going to run? And I said, why would I go down there with that mess? Because that's what it was. It's like they turned it into celebrity. See, I'm a student of Barry. I had my first summer youth job up at UDC in the Office of Academic Advising. And that's probably why I kept going. Because I wasn't thinking about no Office of Academic Advising. I didn't even know what it was, right? But it's funny, God will put things in your path, even when you don't understand why.
Exactly.
And again, if I didn't have people fighting for me, my story could have ended up very differently. And I don't have a problem speaking on it because I'm hoping somebody out there hears that and says, you know what? I'm going to take this mask off. I'm going to go do my work, go get help, go talk to somebody, reach out so that I can live the best life that I'm going to live.
Right.
Because all too often we get too far down the road when we realize that we wasted all that time perpetrating a fraud. And you don't have to do that. But society is not going to tell you that. And then look how long it took us, many of us, to find ourselves. I know my generation. And we want these children to do something sooner than what we did, and we got an education. So I watched Mr. Butler, and it was his wish to do this. He was an ANC, very smart man. But it's something about the politics in D.C. If you're not from this land, it's going to be real interesting to get you in there. Mayor Berry, and he wasn't from here, but that's how high the bar was set.
I didn't even know he wasn't from out here till I got older. I'm like, he's not from out here?
Right. But you would have never, Chuck wasn't either.
Yeah.
But it's just something about real recognizing real. And because we are the nation's seat of governance, you never know if people have an agenda or if it's truly authentically so. And so us being who we are, we're going to feel you out. And so I knew I had to go on that ground because there's no way we're going to change these children's reality if we don't do something about the 300,000 that will not vote, that has just given up. I have heard some of everything. Oh, you look like her. I said, really? We must have roots in the same slave plantation then, right? Or, what makes us think you're not going to do the same thing that the person before you that came here made these promises? I said, that's a great point, but you know what? I didn't come out to defend them. Why don't you find them and ask them? But better yet, why don't you come on and do this work with me? And that way you'll know what it looks like and hope you'll pick it up.
Right.
So there are many reasons why I'm going to the top. I got babies that need to understand that you can do whatever you got to do. You can escape your reality. Even if you're in a household of unhealthy realities and traumas or whatever, you get your schoolwork done. You hold on to that Miss Rhonda or that counselor or that coach that comes along and you get yourself on that ride and get on up out of there, right? And that needs to be real time. I did not come out to do politics, but the God I serve, I said, boy, I'm going to hurt somebody downtown if we don't do something to help galvanize these folks in the right direction. Okay. So the folks that come from where I come from or that are more relatable or would feel more comfortable if I did it their way, why would we lose that time? I mean, Natalie Cole said black don't crack, but I'm 55. Why would I come slow walking? I came forward with a purpose. I'm a mental health advocate for the better part of a decade that walks with receipts, right? Not puffing, not trying to be anything I'm not. And if I say it, you can take it to the bank.
Right.
And as spearheading 2 nonprofits, our capacity was so much, because we never let them go. They always say, when your program over? It's mental health. It's never over. Never. We build relationships for life because that mother 4 years down the road might go through something and she needs to know that there's still a Miss Rhonda she can call or Miss Monique. And so we were trying to lay down seeds to show our folks downtown that, one, I don't subscribe to cliques. I'm not a get with. that's not of my generation, right? We take care of our own. We have always taken care of our seniors, and we have always taken care of our children. But there's something about this celebrity, because you're in politics. And that's why we're in this mess today.
Right.
Because they running around playing politics, and them boys, they saw the same thing Miss Rhonda and everybody else saw. They're not voting. They're not taking care of their own. They're letting the city go to crap. And they down there with a bunch of corruption. Not the whole system, but a lot of it.
Right.
So that the odd thing about politics in D.C. is that I always say, you may not do politics, but politics is doing you.
Right.
So what conversation are we going to have? Because I'm fighting for some children. Some children that know and believed in, and some families that, Miss Rhonda, I need you to be my emergency point of contact because I don't have nobody else. That realness. Or, Miss Rhonda, I'm not staying in that shelter because they challenging my manhood there. So I'd rather hide my clothes wherever and just live. See, when you are sitting behind a desk and deciding that you're going to sign a piece of legislation to affect or impact somebody's lives that you never even had enough respect to go find out what that journey looks like, how is this piece of legislation supposed to work?
Exactly.
And there's no accountability. So we write the checks, we put the gatekeepers in place, keep them in their place so we can keep on doing what we're doing. And now as soon as the big bad monsters show up, as they say, now, come on, hurry up. We got to get him. We got to stop him because it's all him. Before we elected Donald Trump, and I say we because I'm an American and I believe in democracy. And if the majority, if he won, if he took it or whatever, the reality is that we have to understand every 4 years somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. My gripe is I didn't see these families' lives changing whether it was blue in that house or red in that house. So what we're going to do is stop snowing people. We're going to stop being the housing chairperson 3 terms in and knowing that the mold was there, knowing that the ceilings were coming down, knowing that that these people are not economically in a position to hire legal representation to really sue this city. Because if they had it, the city would be bankrupt long before Mr. Trump and the Congress started taking the money from you. Because you're leaving them over there to live with black mold. You're leaving them over there to live with rodent feces as if their children's lives don't matter.
Exactly.
And then when it spirals out of control, you want somebody to put it back inside the gate, where you're the monster in all reality. And you were playing checkers, and these boys showed up playing chess. And so now we're in this mess, and we've got to figure out how to get back together as a community because we're so divided over these same issues that we've been spiraling from. And so that was my observation. And if I was going to do it and take this time out of my life, I buried my mother 2 years ago. I came to create an environment where she could be comfortable in. And don't you know, before we left that community, COVID is the only reason we weren't still in that community.
Wow.
Them kids loved her to death. You couldn't have touched my mother. And when they first saw her, they were scared to death because they didn't know. They didn't understand it. And that's generally, isn't that how our children are?
Yes.
They look to us for guidance. And so before I hurt somebody, I had to bring my mom out there on that block and let them know the reality of what we live with and what we live through and what we can be. Yeah. So
Exactly.
I don't have time to play with them, and I didn't come to be a council member because we have a problem with our mayor, right? Because she's running that government and creating obstacles. And she's probably a great woman in her personal time, but the job that she was hired and elected to do, she's failing. Yeah, and when we see the big buildings go up, I thought about it for a minute. I said, how can I best relate what's going on with this Trump situation? Because let's get it real. I don't like what he's doing either, but he's a bully. He's an opportunist. I've seen his kind. When you do real estate and you negotiate contracts, it's really a bluff when you come to that table sometimes because you're trying to get the best deal. So I got a strategy, you got a strategy, right? And the best part about strategy is knowing your opponent. And if your opponent is weak, you're not going to let up because you're trying to make the deal happen.
Exactly.
Everybody don't talk that language. But again, as a saleswoman, 3% of the population will do what we do in sales, what 97% won't.
Exactly.
They'll go to that job they don't like because they got to pay those bills. And I respect that, but that wasn't my reality. I had a family that fought for me, that allowed me to go out and find myself, and I was still that A student. So I had time to figure out where my skills and my gifts were. So I'm not going to sit in a box so I can fit into your narrative when the world is falling apart. And this is our town. See, I'm DC wherever I go. When we were over in Germany and heard the butt come on, oh, I was a superstar.
Wow.
Because DC, and brothers in the joint, I'm sure they recognize that as well. DC, there was, you put some respect on our name. No matter where we are in the world, we are unique. And when our children stop understanding that or never have the reality to understand that, jokers can show up in our town, right? And challenge who we think we are. That's our future. We 4 and 5, and some of us 6 generations in this town.
Exactly.
This city is big enough to hold the federal monuments, the lawmakers, and the 6 generations of we are the legacy, the descendants of ancestors who didn't want to come this way. We didn't ask to come here.
Exactly.
My last name is Hamilton. So Alexander Hamilton, they tell me, was a great man in his own respect. Really? Okay, let's do something with that. So, yeah.
Thank you so
As
much.
you can see, I got the gift of gab.
Definitely.
Yeah, I saw people not voting, and you live long enough, it has to be about more than money and status. Like I said, this isn't my first or second or third career. I've been out there, and by the grace of God, it does show on my face. So I just wanted to leave a mark. And when I buried my mom, I knew I buried her in January. I came in on the second half of the race in July because they had kept asking me, and she had knocked all of them out in the primaries. And I was like, Lord, if I got to sit and watch this woman go, because they, in their mind, you know what we do. Oh, she got the whiteys around her. She's so big. Really? Because I'm looking at the numbers and looking at the realities of the outcomes, and I'm like, stop feeding that. Come from out the shadows, but then the retaliatory concerns. I don't want to lose my house. I ain't going to speak up, and it was like, wow. Yeah. And
I play politics like that too.
And that's why I say, you may not do politics, but politics is doing you. You know you got a problem, and you waiting 45 days for mental health assessments. The culturally relevant resources in our medical care left east of the river because they couldn't get reimbursed enough to maintain their business structures, right? And so I just started watching the cycle of the impact of bad governance decisions. But because they had the suits and they were looking so polished, we decided to morph into some modern day version of plantation. And I remember when we were coming on, oh, the man. No, the brother man. Because we got a predominantly Black council. Yeah. So that's why I had to go all the way to the top. We got to tear it down and put it back together.
Okay.
Well, being that, DC and the DC community is changing, over the years, we come from, what they call chocolate city, 70%, 71% to 48, 49% of the African American population in DC. I think that's probably over 20%, or about in that range.
Yeah.
What can we do to implement more affordable housing? Not just only, affordable housing, but affordable housing for our communities as well.
You know what? It's interesting you asked that question. I mean, I knew we were going to talk about this today. And one of the things I always want to make the point to say, regardless of which side of the argument you're on, that word affordable is very deceptive. Because as a mental health advocate, I want to know affordable to who? Right? Because you could believe that it's affordable, but it still doesn't reach the population it needs to reach. Now, let me tell you what I mean by that. And they know that. And that's the politics. That's the politics doing you. Because you hear affordable and you think they're talking about what you're looking for. The median income, and I put some facts down because there's so much going on in this town. The median income in our town is $106,000. Right? So if you're making $106,000 a year, your type of affordable is not the type of affordable east of that river where I got 100 families living at or below the federal poverty line. And what that starts at is $15,000 a year for one person. It goes up to $30,000 a year for four. Can you imagine raising your family of four on $30,000 a year? I mean, you'd be thankful that you at least have something coming in. But first of all, we got to realize that we're not having the same conversation and the playing field is not level. And that's the politics, because when it's imbalanced, I'm sorry, Jay, is this in your way? When it's imbalanced, then what happens is that we don't end up having the same outcomes because it wasn't designed like that. And if we understood it that way, nobody's going to run around and know the statistics. And I mean, even me, I like to read, but I like to try to show up prepared too, because I know that there's a lot riding on this. A lot of people need me to be authentic, but they're a little afraid that I'm going to turn out like the others. And I get that, right? But the reality is that my job is to educate. Just like when you wanted your first house or you wanted to get an investment property, you was in over your head, but you had a few coins and you need to get this done, and you pray that you're not going to get taken advantage of because you don't have time to read between the lines. So back to this conversation of affordable housing. The reality in our city is that we have seen developments go up left and right. And they went way up, and then the landscape changed, and, we was cutting ribbons every day. I feel like Ms. Bowser's development strategy felt like Trump's executive orders, meant to keep us off balance. Oh, she's doing something, so we on the come up. Are we on the come up? Because there are people coming to D.C. having a different D.C. experience. And after the construction's done, the windows are in, and the nice stadium, we had Mr. Leonis at the table, and we got the team. We still got an 81 times wealth gap. You're sitting at the table with millionaires, and you couldn't get no help with what's going on over here. So you leave the table with the millionaires and walk back out and say, oh, I got to cut snap. We don't have enough money. That makes sense. So I just wanted to make the point to say, and we'll get to the RFK, but I just wanted to make the point to say, affordable housing, I think that the first step is to find out who they're talking to. Because the average income is $157,000. See, it's a difference between the median and the average, right? And so the median income, I'll go with that because it's the lower number, is $106,000. But when you got at least 100,000 families east of the river that are still trying to put it together on these programs that may or may not be here, and then it's dominoing down to our children, and then the housing that you have in place that people are living in, whether it's public housing or market rent housing, it may be affordable, but the condition. I got about 18 communities where these families are calling me for one thing or another, right? And they're calling me and our agency because I'm the mental health advocate. And by the time you go down there, fight it out with your management company, or you got to send your children to the family in the wintertime because you just can't get this heat done. They got to go to school tomorrow, and you cannot, as a mother or a father, understand why you got to have your children in this setting. You're ready to go hurt somebody. But as soon as you do, they come in to lock you up. Right? And so the reality of affordable housing in D.C. and where I think we are feeling is that, one, we don't have systems that are accountable. Like if I call you, and we have a D.C. Tenant Bill of Rights. This is something I've been advocating for since 2021 with Phil Mendelson, Trayon White, Robert White, all the superstars, all the ones you'll recognize, right? But I don't walk to do this for fame. Like I said, I got families I'm holding on to. I gave them my word, and that means something to me, right? So the D.C. Tenant Bill of Rights says that, You're not supposed to live with mold. You're not supposed to live with rodents. I can go on and on. But that doesn't stop the fact that we have slumlords in our town that are not held accountable, either because there's some kind of handshake, because the politics, or because our people are afraid to push the envelope because they're afraid they're going to be retaliated against and evicted or put out. And they see the system. They don't have no money to pay no fancy attorney. So you say, oh, they can go get an attorney at Bread for the City. Really? Well, most of those types of places are operating on grants that come from the city. So how hard do you think they're really going to push in court? So who you think going to end up compromising? So it's only going to go but so far. And I say that because tenants with babies breathing black mold need more than you to mitigate. Because see, if you left them in there for 3 and 4 months like that, they need an attorney. Because that baby still has to grow. And black mold causes respiratory and other concerns. How are you going to know you 4 properties in and you keep adapting and dealing with this failed governance because you're looking for some sort of affordable housing understanding? So I started there because I wanted to give a shout out to all of my folks that are living in public housing or in regular apartment complexes, and this is your reality. They need to know that their next mayor gets that. It's part of the fuel that brought me forward, and it's why I didn't stop at the council member seat. Because the problems we have in this town with putting truly affordable housing in place. So Ms. Bowser said that she was going to build housing units. So that was the first lesson. When they saying affordable, they're not necessarily talking to you, depending on where the conversation is. Because the reality is that real estate is valuable no matter what side of the river it sits on. If it's even near a river, you're sitting on something. Barry wanted us to understand that. We didn't. The nation's capital is very lucrative, and Mr. Trump and his people know that. And we just inked a deal with the commanders too. Oh, this is going to be a billionaire playground if we could just get these riffraffs. And where's that mayor at? Don't we got something on her? She wanted to play in the big boys game. Now, see, 2 years ago, you watch her in a press conference, and she was very dismissive, very rude, right? So the reality of affordable housing and what do we do about it, and how do we get to there? We've been spending the money. We've been putting up the houses. The reality is that we don't have proper oversight, in my professional opinion. We don't have anybody that's going to say to them, look, okay, enough is enough. Stop with the gentrification. Stop with the feeding or fueling of moving out these bad apples. Because I happen to believe that if we did not elect Mr. Trump, that we still be in this cycle of calling it out. People were walking around frustrated long before he got, but now he's come in and it's easy to let him take the heat. See, I'm an independent. I'm not happy with either side when I see my people still living like this. But because my people don't do politics, we still showing up asking them to create housing opportunities. When your housing is not stable, nothing else can be. So affordable housing in D.C., I think, has been a sham. And why I say that is because they have buzzwords. And because a lot of us show up just looking, and we have programs, don't get me wrong. We get out now, for example, how many people have you met? Because I met a lot that been on the housing list. I met some people been on the housing list since 1979. And let me tell you what's crazy about that. It's 2025. You mean to tell me your economic conditions haven't changed in 25, 30 years? Who's accountable for that? And why would people keep voting if that's the reality, right? But if you don't say nothing, I ain't going to say nothing, and we're going to keep rolling with it, and, we're going to put 10 more units up over here. And then, we got to put some more affordable housing up. Did you know that 2023, I want to say? Got a lot of facts in my head because I do the reading. And I've been here dealing with it. Ms. Bowser misused $92 million out of the Housing Production Trust Fund, right? Housing Production Trust Fund, most people don't even know what it is. It's in place for the creation of affordable housing units. right? And so now, they're back and forth with this budget, and since the Republicans and Trump are doing what they're doing, and we got to preserve the units. So now I'm going to take you to school before I go to this inclusionary zone, which I think is the ticket. One of the things that one of the campaign, one of my research guy and I, we have talks, and he said, "You miss real estate. I see this building every day on my block. It's a group of them over on V Street Southeast. I'm gonna be transparent because I want them to go try to hurry up and do something with it, right? It's been sitting there." And he said, "We got so many people that's homeless. Why don't they do something with their vacant real estate? They're not going to volunteer this stuff to you, right?" So I go in, public records, because I can, because that's what I do, because God had a sense of humor. And I look up public records. We own that property since 2011. Paid, I believe, 2.5 for it. So we're sitting on a nice piece of change 14 years later. See, one thing you need to know about real estate, it appreciates it either appreciates or depreciates every 6 months. Either way, the market changes every 6 months. And what affects the market is the infrastructure around it, the school systems, is it safe, is there crime, right? The makeup, the diversity of the people, right? So all of that factors in. When these jokers show up to our town, they show up knowing that already. We don't know. So Miss Johnson, who's been sitting on that house all this time over at Frederick Douglass, sitting in a historic district, but they're going to give her enough coins because she can't handle it anymore. The tax is going to get pushed up. Gentrification. I got to get rid of you.
Exactly what happened on my block.
And that's what a mayor's responsibility is. And before the mayor, you have your ANC. But we don't go to the ANC meetings, right? So what they say is, well, they don't care. If they care, they show up to the meetings. Like, that's justification not to still get you the knowledge. Boy, we can go to school. So gentrification is real. And in the midst of that, the city's been managing a $21 billion budget. Every year we set a budget. The difference between us being state versus this home rule that they keep talking about is in 1973, actually on Christmas Eve, 1973, we got granted the right to elect our own leaders, our own mayor, our own council, set our own laws, set our own budget. In that home rule, there, you read it, it'll tell you what we're required to do. But in essence, we set the budget, but then it has to go down to Congress for approval. We're the only ones going through that. All the other 50 states, 2 territories, we're the only one going through that, right? So, and it's because we're a district, they say. They say in the Constitution, we were a district. When they were talking about that Constitution, who you think was building this city? Right? We didn't ask to come here. So now what you're going to do is decide you're going to change history. And you want to provoke us because you think you know us. Remember that conversation about strategy, showing up to the table and knowing your opponent? Oh, we are an emotional people. So they're going to bank on the fact that put the National Guards on the street. We got an agenda or whatever. I wish they would get out of line. I'll lock them away for life because I got the power. You think this is the first set of jokers that got the power that showed up? Slaves were freed because Frederick Douglass made a deal with Lincoln. They were losing, right? Because they had the power, but they were losing. Frederick Douglass said, I know how to help you win. But if you win, you're going to release these slaves. We come from that. No matter how they show up, no matter how many resources they have, in the chaos, there's opportunity. So you keep focused. So what makes this frustrating when we talk about this affordable housing and I hear, oh, they're going to do this, or I got into this program. Yeah, a few of you have to get in to prove that they did something with the money. But all of you ain't getting in because you're going to thwart the plan. And see, my bank account look okay. I'm good. So It's survival of the fittest.
Right.
So I have to help change the language. I have to show that we can do it differently. I had a young lady just say to me, well, Dr. Hammer, the resources are scarce, so how are we going to? You audited the books? Who told you the resources were scarce? How you know they're scarce? Because you don't have them? And that means we don't have the ability to provide them? We shouldn't be so easily to trust. So take you one more lesson. I promise we're going to talk exclusionary zone. You run a business. I run a couple. Most businesses have something called the organizational chart. Tell you just what the hierarchy is, who's in charge, right? DC government has an organizational chart. First square at the top of the top is the DC resident. Under that square is the DC council, the mayor, and judiciary, the 3 branches of government, right? What that mean? This is our business. That's what democracy is supposed to be. We elect them. It doesn't mean that we're not going to every now and then have a Trump show up, but that's not supposed to sway you. I'm telling you facts that if you told your neighbor and your neighbor, we'd be having a bigger conversation other than affordable housing. We'd be having a conversation about, oh, they got to go. This our country, this our city. And so the first letter I wrote to Mr. Trump was, you can do what you want with this mayor. Leave our city alone. See, they're playing on the fact that our people don't know. We're divided because we're frustrated, because we've been looking for affordable housing, and it's not enough. And so, press conference, the mayor met her goal. She's building 69,000 housing units. This was in 2019. In 2025 is her goal. Oh, she did it. Out of 69,000 housing units built, affordable for us or for folks affordable, 12,000 of those units were affordable, right? So if 12,000 of those units are affordable and I got 100,000 people living at the poverty level, I got 5,000 people living on the street homeless, and I know that because every January we do a point in time count. And I know that number's higher because we're not accounting for the children that are aging out of the foster care system. A lot of them that are part of this youth crime, right? Because they're surviving. So when you start understanding the breakdown and the failures of governance and our inability to show up and hold them accountable, why? You're the first square on the organizational chart. They know that, but they also know you don't know that. And watch this. We've been under attack from Trump and them all this time, and so now, they took the $1 billion, and we got to have the $1 billion, and the day before they announced they got to cut jobs because of it, we was outside on Freedom Plaza celebrating Juneteenth. Did anybody make an announcement at the party? No. But then when you woke up that next day, what happened? Press conference. They took our $1 billion, and we got to do this. That's the politics. And then make you feel guilty if you even challenge it. And that's why I'm speaking for many reasons, fighting for my babies, but if I can help my babies, I gotta help the generation that's holding my babies. Y'all gonna inherit this, right? And you gotta be able to understand that you live in the nation's seat of governance with waterfront property. Millionaires and billionaires showing up, putting it down. This is your town. You ought not be so willing to watch them give it away, right? So, inclusionary zone and rapid rehousing and whatever units they build, and they say this percentage for you. Inclusionary zone is a lottery, right? They're supposed to set aside at least 10%, somewhere between 8 and 10% of new housing development. And it's attractive. It should be. You can save about $800,000 a month on average and live where you want, live in a nice space, be new. That's a wonderful program, right? But it's a lottery. So everybody ain't gonna get one. So we have, I think, DC Policy Institute said that they did the math. We got about 3,000 apartment buildings and about 130 some odd thousand rental units. Out of that is 4,000 inclusionary zone.
That's a little off.
The math is not mathing. So you got 4,000 inclusionary zone units. You got 12,000 out of her 69,000. She met her goal, and she did what she said she's gonna do. Gave you your affordable housing. In the process, she pulled $92 million out of that fund and put them buildings up. And that money is not supposed to be used if it's not for folks that have 30% or less exposure, right? That's the affordable you're talking about. But as long as I keep you uneducated and I keep the optics, and that's why I said those ribbons were being cut as fast as these executive orders is coming out. So surely we got it, you know? And that's this game we're playing with this affordable housing. So the reality is for me, we want to audit. We want to see the books. Because coming from math as I do and following the money tells you the story. This is our business, and that's what voting is about, democracy, right? And so when Trump shows up and we're already angry, frustrated, looking for options and alternatives, and it becomes the perfect storm for our mayor and the folks at the council level to say, see, he's doing it. And then I come along and say, don't get amnesia on me. Before we elected him, we had problems. So we have real estate. We have units that should be made available. We own real estate as a city that's sitting vacant while we clear encampments and while we watch folks get frustrated and sit on a housing list for housing 30 years later and still waiting for the number to be called. Makes no sense. Makes no sense at all. So how am I going to be different? I would imagine folks would say, because it's easy to call out the problem. I like the inclusionary zones because I can't imagine if we are intentional about slowing this gentrification down, then we need to help. You know, I have workers in D.C. that can't live in D.C. because it's too expensive. And they said, Dr. Hamilton, don't forget about us, our teachers, our first responders, and other personnel. Dr. Hamilton, it's too expensive, so they go out to the suburbs. And that's why sometimes I go out and talk in PG County or show up at an event because they out there, because they just can't afford to be here.
But they want to be
Right.
here.
So we're bringing them back because that's how we're going to slow gentrification down. Because watch this. On those books, the legislation that your mayor oversees and the council understands, there's something called a workforce program, a program designed to house the working force. So we're going to bring them back. And the way we're going to bring them back is they have jobs. They gainfully employed. So we got to help them get equity and put them in these communities, get them to do a deal. See, I'm a deal maker. I'm a salesperson, right? You want to be in the city? We want to hold this real estate down and make sure that we don't keep getting pushed out because we can't afford it. Then we're going to figure out, because the average house in D.C. is $600,000 right now. So they probably ain't coming back unless we figure out a way. And that's what the mayor's job is, right? So we need, I don't know if you guys are young, old enough to remember, but HUD had a program called the Officer Next Door, Teacher Next Door program. And what that really was is that the equivalent of Berry Farm back in the day. And teachers were going to find somewhere to live in the city. HUD would say to them, look, if you stay in Berry Farms, that house is worth $100, but we're going to sell it to you for $50. So you're going to walk in the door with instant equity.
Right.
And you know why that's attractive? Because that's where most people make their money. If they didn't make it in insurance, they make it in real estate. You make your money, market value versus what you owe on it. So if I got something worth $100 and the real estate market changes every 6 months, that $100,000 property may go to $250,000, and I own it for $50,000. If I just could stay in Berry Farm and my deal says I have to be here 5 years before I sell it. As long as I move here, I'm back in D.C. because the point and the goal is to put professionals in these communities that are starting to spiral because my people that are there can't afford to keep them up. But before we let other folks come in with other agendas from other places and push us out, and by us, I just mean Washingtonians at this point, because we make the mistake of assuming that it's all black and white. It's bigger than black and white.
Right.
See, this is a power grab. We are sitting on a waterfront property. And I just said to Heartbeat, the gentleman that I'm going to be interviewed with the influence in the go-go community, my God, we keep throwing these go-go's in the face of all of this and we're not talking about purpose. But I can't get on the mic because they'll lose their job. Because these events aren't designed for that. They're designed to keep us happy. Because when we're happy, everything must be okay.
Right.
I got 25,000 people get ready to get kicked off of Medicaid. And most of them are seniors, are disabled. And you go fight a war and you got to come back and negotiate for your well-being. That's just cruel.
Very.
That's cruel. So inclusionary zoning housing is going to give us the opportunity to have more people have access to nice homes. And it's also going to force us to have these mixed communities, right? We have a very well diverse population here. And I know the story is always we're no longer Chocolate City, right? We don't have to always be Chocolate City. We're always going to be chocolate, right? That's just psychological. Our goal is to now integrate and make sure we're at every table because our children got to be able to sit at those tables.
Exactly.
Right? They're fighting for their legacy and we're supposed to be fighting for ours. And as Washingtonians, this is our town. We are a splendid blend of 700,000 citizens, right? We have the power if we could just understand that. But some of us are not educated. Some of us are still stuck in the cycles of the trauma and the PTSD. And some of us just trying to get ahead and disassociate and say, oh, they're some menaces. Yeah, lock them up. Take them on out of here. We used to be a civilized society. We used to be a community. You used to could not come to the block and try it, right? We're not there anymore because we're too busy in line looking for affordable housing and waiting for our name to be called on a list. Some sort of modern day version of slavery, plantation style. And I just want us to be able to have an opportunity to win. Schools, we're having problems. Comprehension levels are low. The affordable housing, if you don't have stable housing, nothing else will work. You'll spiral. Take it from the mental health advocate.
Okay. So just to play devil's advocate, I know we have a couple other subjects we want to talk about, but Trump has implemented something about a 2-year thing within on public housing and 2-year limit and a lot of restrictions on what you could use with your food stamps and et cetera, et cetera. And it seems like he's trying to just basically kind of get rid of the affordable housing thing.
Yeah, and let me say this to you. Of course he is. Of course he is. You're intelligent. You understand that. Of course he is. He's playing chess and we're playing checkers. So my question to you is, if we are a city that's been under home rule, been there the whole time, it's in writing, as long as we lean on that federal government, because that's why he's doing it. He's the Black Lives Matter Plaza and the language was on the ground and she went and got it up. He said, if you don't get that up, I'm not giving you that transportation money you want that you're using to keep them buses going around your city. Our budget is made up of taxpayer monies and federal government dollars. And the bigger our footprint and lean is on the federal government, then he as the president can come and threaten. And that's why you see her getting smacked around or she look uncomfortable back there. She's doing the best she can. And the only reason I would say, and I'm not saying I'm so much greater, no, but politics happen. and they got celebrity on them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now the boys are here, and they said, oh, you played our game, huh? And you kept your people dumb, huh? Okay. And that backroom conversation happened, right? So she know the writing's on the wall. So I read one of the comments and she said the community has to come up. I'm thinking as the mayor, if Mayor Berry was here, do you think we'd be having a different understanding?
Mm.
He would have been locked up already because he would have been out there in the street and he would have been calling for us to be in the street. He would have galvanized us to say, look, and we wouldn't have been standing at a go-go leaving, not understanding what whole home rule is.
Okay.
See, if you don't know what it is, you can't tell the children what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And if the children don't know Tiger Woods, you better know they don't know nothing about no home rule. Mm-hmm. So this is the politics that we turn away from. But the truth of the matter is that, of course, he's going to keep pulling the rug out because that's the puppeteering. Mm-hmm. You know, we got to reduce our footprint with the federal government. Do you know all these years, I know your grandparents, great-grandparents rode around with the license plates, taxation without representation, right? Mm-hmm. And that just basically means we had Miss Norton down there. All the other states get a vote when things come up. Her vote don't mean nothing because we're not a state, right? So we've been in checkmate all this time. Mm-hmm. So the reality of us leaning on the federal government, having at least 100,000 families living at or below the poverty level, sitting on a housing list, waiting for our number to be called, dealing with slumlords. We had thousands of public housing units that just, they took the money. You remember the stories that came out of the headlines? They were selling the housing vouchers out the door. Yeah, because when ain't nobody watching the kingdom, we going, you know? And so we wonder why we got homeless in the streets. So we've been a system. The point I'm making to you, all of it dominoes into this failure. So yeah, he's a menace. He's a problem. But he's just being an opportunist because we sitting in the trap wounded. And the leader that we need to trust is not really giving us the energy we need to feel. We don't always have to fight physically, but at least show us that we can do something. And I'm saying the top of the organizational chart is you all, us, the world, the media. You know how powerful the media is.
Exactly.
And your era of social media especially. The world is watching the nation see the governance, and we haven't figured out yet that we're supposed to be organized, calling it out. Everybody has a role to play. Right. If it's 700,000 of us in here, you on the camera because you know that's your gift, that's your job, to get it out. Got the gift of gab, do a little bit of reading, been around a few blocks. Okay, we're supposed to organize because that's what the movement looked like in King's Day.
Okay.
Dick Gregory told his jokes. It wasn't because he was celebrity. It was the fact that the movement needed to be funded so he know what his role was. And he took care and made sure King got it, right? We got to get back to that. And the problem is we've been so watered down because some of us, we doing good. We don't need no affordable housing. I got a Lexus. I got a mortgage. I heard on social media, this ain't our fight. It's always our fight when our baby's coming down the lane. And that's what we're dealing with. And these jokers who are opportunists, they came to play chess, and we're playing checkers. So everything is connected. And so for me coming in, I'm not perfect, no. But what I do know is that our strongest asset, in my opinion, are our citizens. Right. And one thing I know about knowledge, once you learn something, you can't unlearn it. So you give me a go-go with all those people and put that mic in my hand. The odds are in my favor that we're going to get more people educated than they need us to be. So yes, we need more affordable housing. We need more inclusionary zone housing. But you know what we need most of all? I need to shorten our footprint on that federal government so no other president, and not even him, has the audacity to think he can try us. California is the 4th largest economy around the world. He tries them and they take his butt right to court. And then he go and he skip over here and do something over here. But they going toe-to-toe with him. Why? Because they the 4th largest economy around the world. They give the federal government more federal taxes than what they take in programs. That is how we have to be. We have to come from a position of strength. And because they've allowed us to fester so long, you can't just go and say, okay, come on, you can't do this anymore. No. Jobs, careers, education. In that school. We used to have trades. We used to have government. You would have learned this already before you graduated.
Exactly.
Where are the arts and the music? We got to take our narrative back, because if we don't, we play right into their hands. And that's what disappoints me about our leadership, because they down there, oh, Dr. Hampton, my citizens say, well, they're going to have a OTA meeting, OTA office attendant, and we got to go down there. I said, why? They're not educating you. What are you going down there to do? And we really believe that we are supposed to follow this assembly line. So I came down to break all the monotony up and say, first of all, this is our business. We want to see those books, because I'm sure there's some relationships on those books that has made it impossible for our children to get what they need. So now our children out here and the world is watching them. They're being threatened that they're going to be litigated as adults because they are menaces. Mr. Trump didn't come and say, okay, let me understand your landscape. You go in another man's house without being invited in? Yeah, he's smacking us around because we're leaning on that federal dollar, right? So if I told you I had a plan, and I can't tell you everything in this setting because our folks are watching me, and I want them to watch me because I want them to know I'm coming, because enough is enough, right? But we have resources. We just have to be willing to show up and vote, because our strongest asset is the citizens waking up, right? And the hardest thing to do sometimes is to believe, because why would I know what I'm talking about when clearly politics is this? Politics is what you have watched generations of your family try to survive through. And it should be done with. Because if there are other people can show up in this town and have a different experience, how much more time does your family have to get put in before you can have that experience?
That's all right.
So we're not asking the right questions because we don't know what questions to ask, and we're getting lost behind their buzzwords, right? So we have enough money. We have enough owned real estate that we haven't put people in. We have enough failed public housing properties. And this is the thing. I tell you, I walk with receipts. The current director of housing, talking about you, Mr. Pettigrew, he told to a reporter and said, look, I inherited this problem, because he didn't want nobody jumping on his back, right? 3 policing agencies was on the doorstep of DCHA, the housing. FBI, HUD, Office of Inspector General, and the OAG. Now you ask yourself, why would 3 different agencies have to be on the doorstep of a housing agency? Why? What generally gets the FBI attention? Corruption.
Definitely.
And in the federal government, there's something called fraud, waste, and abuse that triggers investigations. So I'm not just running my mouth. In 2022, was it 22? 2023, we went down and we filed a complaint. We wanted this administration audited because I didn't understand how you're managing this budget, putting up those buildings, and the people over here that we're servicing, their lives ain't changing.
At all.
So clearly there's something wrong with the allocation of the monies. And if you are the oversight committee for Congress overseeing DC's budget and you have to approve, we want to audit. Got a case number? I don't make nothing up. I don't have to.
Right.
So the problem is that when you control the media, and they do, because their biggest concern is the Republicans can't win. This is a blue city, and the Republicans can't win. But what happened in 24 with that kind of mindset? They lost the black brothers, didn't they? The brothers stood up and said, you satisfied now? Look what we got. You did that. Because you left us wounded in the trap that these jokers knew that they could come here and play you like a fiddle. And you knew that you had all these lives in your hands, playing with the real estate, playing with the money. So let me get this straight. We got 100,000 people living at the poverty level, people in the housing line for housing. We got real estate that we own that's sitting vacant, that we ain't put nobody in. We have public housing properties that are sitting vacant because the money gone, so the budget messed up, so we don't have no money to fix those, we say, okay? And we have people living with slumlords, but we have something called a receivership. How does a slumlord rack up $542,000 worth of fines? Then I'm going to ask you something else. How do you, as a city, say to the citizens that we can't afford the SNAP, we can't afford to do these programs because the federal government and Mr. Trump are taking our money, and that's the narrative that goes out. You people aren't paying your rent, so we can't fund the ERAP like we need to. But then you don't collect $40 million from the slumlord that you left on the table.
Crazy.
Because we're not watching our business. We the first square on that organizational chart. Somebody got to do the homework. And then we all got to show up. And I'm hoping, as Tupac said, may not be here when y'all decide to show up. I'm working on it.
Right.
But I hope I'm sparking the next brain that will say, wait a minute, there was Barry. You know what I'm saying? Then Dr. Hamilton was talking about it. You know, I just want you guys to know you have the power. Democracy, the power rests with the people. Your generation has more energy, and you won't just settle for, you know, our grandmothers and great-grandmothers, they were polite. You know, they talked about it, but they had a way. You know, they were disciplined and obedient because they lived through it. And they seen the horrors of when you speak up. You all don't have to be that. But right now, the fear of the unknown, the fact that we want the leaders that we elected to do something because we need to believe that they got it. They don't got it. They don't got it. And if we don't stand up and speak up, our democracy is going to be snatched away from us because he at the table bluffing because he studied his opponent and he knows we're wounded. So yeah, we need some affordable housing. Just make sure that we're talking about the right affordable housing. But I happen to believe with all that inventory down there, I'm going right on down there and we're going to make sure that we get it taken care of.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, so I want to get to this right here, and I had to pay devil's advocate.
That's fine. I welcome it.
Okay, we know everything that's going on with Trump and the federal government and him bringing and implement. But there are a lot of people that are actually somewhat in support. Someone who was in support, not because of Trump said it, that did say they somewhat supported it, was Trayon White, our council member, right, of the National Guard at the time when he's a council member again now, but he did call for National Guard, he did call for assistance, but nobody was listening to him at the time when DC was in a war zone. We was post COVID. There was a lot of I think homicides were like at rates that we haven't seen in over 20 years and so forth. And so there was actually a call for this, but not in the way that Trump wants to implement it in a way.
I was getting ready to say, you know why he made that call? He made the call probably genuinely because he saw that it was just out of control, right? And beyond what he saw them making legislation or policies or the police being able to do something. But he made that call because the Democrats were in charge and he had no fear of losing his house, meaning the house being D.C. They had no idea that Trump would show up and play this card. They thought, come clean it up and then we'll keep running it. But they gambled and lost because all the other stuff that went on, right? And so now you're in a different position and this guard being called is actually changing up the paradigm because you have no power. And not only do you not have no power, you're watching your brothers get carted away, and there's that little piece of history that says, but you was with this. That's the politics. He was with it only if that meant that the blue people were going to stay in charge.
Right.
See, that's what we got to grow from, living in the nation's seat of governance. Every 4 years, we're going to see somebody go in or out of that White House unless they repeat their term. We got to watch the politics. Somebody going to lose, somebody going to win. We got to shore up so no matter who in that house, we win it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, yeah, he called for it. And, yeah, there are people that are with this because they scared to death. But I'm saying to you that for the better part of 10 years, knock on wood, I've walked into communities and decided to go forward because I feel like there's so many layers we can approach before we have to lock up our kids as adults. Mm-hmm. See, the writing was on the wall when 12-year-olds were doing carjackings and murder. And we have to hold ourselves accountable. Right. But again, we're not willing to do that. Mm-hmm. We need somebody else to fix it.
Right. I agree.
Yeah. So I don't agree with it. I think that would have been more respectful to come in and say, look, DC can't have tourists coming in here like this. What's going on now? These guns, what is going on? What do you need help with? Okay, what do we need to fund? What do they need to do? Do they need to go off to some kind of, military school? Do we need to put some kind of program in place? Okay, what are we going to do, DC, right? Because you guys got to do something about this. That would have been respectful. So it's not that we're saying that the crime isn't a problem. We're saying it's disrespectful to walk up in our house and not consult us and say, look, you guys got to do this. I'm going to give you a chance. If you don't, then we're going to have to do this. Mm-hmm. But it's never do we lock up children coming out of these impoverished communities that they were left to fester and survive. And now we're going to take their life away from them? Yeah, they're making reckless decisions. But even jail has rehabilitation for people that were white and did murders, came out. So what are we talking about? There's no in between? And then where's the executive order that finds out how these guns keep landing in their hands? Because they're not rich. A report came out, said that the ATF did a study or research, and a lot of the guns found at crime scenes in D.C. were traced back to the police. Ooh. It's right. See why somebody got to always be watching the gate? Because I got to pour this into you so that you don't ever forget that the politics is what turns us off.
Yeah, we have a DC gun task force.
Well, it gets better. The schools just had an audit, and they said we got problems with guns in the school. Why? Why would we have problems with guns in the school? Second thing is our crime lab, we lost our accreditation because we were losing the evidence because, it's a political town. Never know. But now we still don't have our accreditation for handguns. Mm-hmm. Why? Why? Democrat House? But it's his fault, right? Because that's what they do. They move you back and forth. So, yeah, and last fun fact about these guards on our street, very ironic that some of the red states are sending the guards here to help out. 4 out of the top 5 states in the nation right now with the worst crime are red states. Tennessee. And the Representative Oakley's who's the rep for Tennessee. Tennessee is off the chain. But he down here in D.C. writing legislation to take us over for our crime. Mm-hmm. Tennessee, Louisiana, Alabama, and what's my other one? Come on, Rhonda. Tennessee, Alabama, Louisiana. Come on. It's going to come to you.
St. Louis? No.
Arkansas,
yes.
You see National Guard there? So that's what makes it disrespectful for him to pull this on Bowser. Mm-hmm. And what disappoints me, not that I'm not bulletproof or anything, but the first thing Berry Farm, Woodland, Wingate, Fairmont, we DC. You don't show up in our town and not be held accountable, right? Mm-hmm. The home rule, Section 740 is what he's operating under right now. And as the president, he got different things he can use. He's using the home rule against us. The home rule says if he shows up and feels that he can declare us an state of emergency, then he can put these National Guards on our street for 30 days. And if he feels like it ain't getting any better, he can ask for an extension from Congress. So you know what we're supposed to be? We're supposed to already, as the mayor, I should have a dream team of lawyers right here ready to say, hold up, we got this. We're going to exercise our democracy and vote and make sure that this legislation gets passed. And then we also go ahead and take, what would 300,000 Washingtonians down on the steps of Congress look like? See, we're fighting with the wrong tools. You know why? Because our enemy or our opponent has studied us, and he knows that we're emotional. And why would I waste all my energy if all I got to do is scare the mess out of you? Exactly. And the world is watching.
Literally.
So you put those guards in those communities up in them holes where they are, you're going to get you a lot of them. And then that's how we're going to show them. We locked up hundreds of thousands of them. So I cleaned up the nation's capital. And don't get me wrong, we're still guilty for even being so weak for him to be able to evoke that level of strategy. We should make them work harder to come for our real estate that's sitting on the waterfront.
Exactly.
While we stand in line waiting on affordable housing with 4,000 inclusionary zones with 130-something thousand rental units. Again, her developing feels like his executive orders. They just keep going up and cutting the ribbons, and we all, where's ours? There is no ours. What does gentrification look like without relocation? It looks like you staying in place. It looks like your baby benefiting from the schools and the upward mobility. Looks like a lot of things. But just so you don't get the impression that this is black and white, my family's on the west side that don't look like you and I said their plan is when their child gets to the 8th grade, they moving out of the city because they don't have any faith that this school system, the two that we finance and pay for, this school systems doesn't offer their children enough to have the type of outcomes that they desire. It's beneath their standards. So you know what we need to be doing? Setting standards and voting.
Great.
Okay?
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I do have one more question I want to ask here.
Okay.
And this is kind of like a double question that I want to ask. Okay. What are sensitives like? Because we have a lot of entrepreneurship in DC. A lot of entrepreneurship and stuff like that. What investments are you here to make as far as attracting to like new businesses and promoting jobs in the district for district residents or people from our metropolitan people are from here in our area as well, and just to double up on that, what investments you are looking for like the youth and the education infrastructure and resources for public schools too, because I feel like that kind of in a way connects in a way. You brought up trade and apprenticeships and stuff like that.
That's exactly where I'm going.
Whereas, when they get out of school, they have something already going for themselves as well. Me, I have an entrepreneurship spirit, and I have a desire to open a business. And then when you see with the gentrification going on, these people are easily getting grants, easily getting
snatching it up.
I'm literally snatching them, and I'm talking about paying out a dime out their pocket, and they able to have a whole, I don't know, a puppy walking business or something like that.
Absolutely.
They
absolutely.
Out of town,
sky's the limit. They on the
out of town people, they love their dogs. So this and the third. So.
Yeah. So a couple of things. Right now with Trump and these tariffs and these politics and things, just like I said, every 6 months real estate goes up, real estate could come down. Market conditions impact what it will do, right? And so what we've got to do is we've got to figure out how do we interject ourselves into that. I came forward because I know that there was an education miss, and everything that you tell me is wrong with this city, I'm going to take you right back to the root cause, which is the lack of education. What I want for you all is home ownership or some level of ownership.
Yes.
Because when you own something, you treat it differently, right? So what they did was came in, and what they're doing is coming in and taking it from behind you, right? Taking it right out from under you. Because the come up in the puppy walking business is based on the equity. Remember I said about bringing my workers back in and walking them into equity? That's the incentive to get them to want to live in Out Loud Berry Farm, because we got to hold what we got. And not just Berry Farm, just everywhere. But I'm not going to pay you to live on Connecticut Avenue if it's Lily. right? I got to make it worth your while to come over here and hold the fort. So now we have communities of teachers, doctors, first responders, working class folks, right? That will help us build the structure back and slow the gentrification down, to give you all time to come down the lane to get the education through whatever mechanisms that's out there. Right. I want to see, one of the things that we have is something called CBE grants. And CBE grants are supposed to make it so that small Black businesses and entrepreneurs get an opportunity. Here comes the politics again. So I'm going to give Daryl, my second cousin, he going to get this grant. And I'm going to give Lisa, that's my girl from back in the day, I'm going to give her this grant because she got this nonprofit. And here you walking all around the city filming everything and making sure, and doing good. But unless I come and tell you here, you got to get in the clique, babe. Because see, you in the clique, now I don't got to worry about you when it's time for me to run again for election. Because surely you're going to be grateful that I gave you that, right? That come up, right? Mm-hmm. So, again, first square, DC resident. If we're not holding accountable and watching, and then they're going to keep on wheeling and dealing because you don't matter. You're just in the way because you ain't got the education. So what I want for you guys is ownership. If you look at your history, wealthy people, they have habits. They either invest in real estate, stock, coins, right? Gold is up, right? Art, right? Nothing I named is on your radar, right?
A little bit of them.
A little bit.
But I get the argument, though.
Right?
Yeah.
So what we got to do is got to be second nature. We got to be able to create these opportunities. We got to look at the industries that are gainfully keeping our people employed. See, people keep saying, bring jobs. Just over, bro, you can lose a job. I want you to have a career, right? So that you stay with that entrepreneurship, so that your equity comes in. So now you can cash out your equity. What would you be doing if you were sitting on a piece of $250,000 property that you didn't owe anything on? Now you got decisions to make. But see, with more comes responsibility. At some point, y'all got to get this knowledge. And it's not always going to be on a YouTube click. And that's why we need to be community. Because as long as God blesses people like Miss Rhonda to come back and give back, and what we have in common is our love for this city and helping people and trying to do right, that's why I say our strongest assets are our 700,000 citizens. That baby girl sitting next to you right over there, she needs to be speaking multiple languages at some point. You know why? Because even though you may not have economically been able to take her to Guatemala or take her to Mexico or take her to Costa Rica or wherever, Germany, where she could be exposed to that culture, that's the beauty of diversity. That's why I say don't worry about not being Chocolate City anymore for a minute. See, they need you to be fixated on that so you ain't focused on nothing else. Yeah. You're always going to be Chocolate City, right? But it's how we show up. And if they're going to flip the game, then we got to figure out how we flipping the game. Our children need to be speaking multiple languages because we got a city full of people that do. And we probably ain't going to slow down and do it, but let the babies do it. But you know how you do that? You show up at those PTAs, you look at those curriculums in the school, you make sure that they're the standard. Remember I told the people that don't look like you and I, say 8th grade, they out? Because they ain't playing with it a little bit. They getting Tommy, he got to go to college. Right? And nobody's messing around with this DC school system. These people don't know, but you know what I'm saying? So I want you guys to be homeowners, but to do that, I have to set you up for careers. You got to, and when I look at, for example, healthcare, I'm gonna give you an example about this Medicaid and kicking $25,000 off. So I had a conversation, and I hate telling it because it'll get out and then they'll be running, but Black farmers, right? I had a conversation. I said, you know what? We don't have any, we city people. Our people grew fresh vegetables and fruits and fed us with the scraps, and we came out good, right? We got to get back to that. We going to the corner store, the liquor store, we eating packaged foods, and we only got but 3 grocery stores east of the river, and it's over 70 grocery stores west of the river. That's the politics. But you don't get mad. You get educated, and you come together. As long as they keep us divided, then we're going to stay right where we are. I want ownership for you all. Then I want to teach you insurance. I want financial literacy in these schools. Why? Because insurance is the first step of wealth. Why? We don't get, did you get to talk at the kitchen table? No, and we don't. Timmy, Tommy, Jenny, they get stock for Christmas. We run around spending our last on toys and things that don't appreciate. We can still do that, but we got to do something different if we want something different. So you asked me, why didn't I stop at the council? This is too much for council level. I got to go change that system to give y'all time enough to come to the table. And by y'all, I mean Washingtonians. This is our town, and he is not showing us any respect because he would assume that he knows us. And I'd like to be the monkey wrench in that plan, and I'd like for you guys to show up so we can get this done because she's made a mess of things. And what she'll do is sit on that TV and sit and hide because the accountability, it's awful. And if she just gets through it, her bank account is fine. Right? I'm not worried about her bank account. I'm worried about the bank account that you got to set up for baby girl and the others. So I want ownership for you all. I want to graduate our boys to something other than corners. I don't ever want us to be this weak again to where they would show up and take care of our problems. We're not perfect, and every town has its issues. But like I said, 4 out of the 5 states that have crime in this nation right now, I don't see guards on their street. So when the reporter calls me and says, oh, black is white, yeah, you'd like for me to stop there. No joke. If they're going to play chess, I'm going to play chess too. We're not going to keep having this black-white conversation as if we're not capable to rise above that. So Section 740 is what he's using against us, and the fear-mongering is what he hopes that he'll gain. He's hoping that we'll be emotional enough to respond, and meanwhile, our local leadership is just praying, that they get out of this unscathed. Because when the citizens wake up, it's going to be a different conversation. See, they've been riding high. Affordable housing, and we've been running. Oh, they singing our song, affordable. Affordable for who?
Not me.
How do you put up 130-something thousand rental units across the city and only 4,000 available for a lottery, and you're supposed to feel like you did something? But you can go and misuse $92 million and build up your DC experience. Gentrification on the rise. Well, what does gentrification look like without relocation? It looks like you're going to share in some of it too, right? Strategy. That's why I'm running for mayor. Because we've been losing too long. And I got some children that need to win. And you are going to benefit just because you're the next in line. And if I got to drag you kicking and screaming, put your seatbelt on because you're going. That's why I'm running for mayor. Because it's time. They came up in our house and they're not showing us any respect. Can you live with that?
Yes, I can.
I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. It's been a great interview. Great. It's a very eye-opening interview right here.
I
definitely appreciate that. One thing is, and I think, and this is the last, I promise you this is the last question, because I know we've been going. This is the last question. You being an African-American female mayoral candidate, right? We already elected one.
Exactly.
About 10 years ago, and over time she showed her true colors. Before that, we had a mayor who was in our communities. I'm just saying his name, Adrian Fenty.
I know who you're talking about.
And he was in our community. Opposed. Well, we had Gray as well, but Adrian Fenty, he was in our neighborhood saying this is what was going to change. We're not going to displace you. And then wolves in sheep clothing. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
Before that, we had Anthony. People don't think because I'm younger that I'm not educated. We had Anthony.
I hear you calling it out.
What was it? Anthony Williams.
He's still here pulling strings too.
Exactly. And openly said, I'm trying to displace our community.
Yep.
Openly said it, trying to use fancy words and trying to say we're going to have better homes and communities with gentrification. But the question is really for real. What can you really convince the people? And then also not even just convince our communities. You have to convince the whole DC.
Yes.
Not even just our communities,
That's
Ward
right.
7, Ward 8, me growing
That's
up
right.
in Northwest, you got to convince, even the people who are moving into our communities, the people that's in Cleveland Park, and people that's in Ward 5, the people that grew up in Muriel Bowser's neighborhood of Riggs Park and Michigan Park.
Absolutely.
Like, how can you convince DC that you are different from the politics and policies?
I love that question, and thank you for not letting me get out here without answering
Yes.
it. I'm going to tell you a couple of things. Again, I come background in sales, Ward 8, humble beginning, right?
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I know is that education, once you learn something, you can't unlearn it.
Right.
And we are mistaken if we believe that just the black people in D.C. are frustrated, right? And so there are cycles of citizens that are one in the lane, very loud, frustrated, let you know right off the gate, they just, Then you have the ones that's sitting in the cut watching, right? Because they know, they knowledgeable, but they need to see which way it's going to swing because it's not popular to jump out there and you don't go all the way, right? And so you get those calls on the down low, they feeling you out. And I show up for the interview because I need you guys to know something. Whether you get it or not, now that you've learned these things, do your homework. If I told you anything that wasn't accurate, that would be my first strike, right? But after you do your homework and you find out, okay, she might know a little something, okay, great. But that don't still mean she it. That's okay. Now you got to wrestle with yourself. Because if you guys take this knowledge and still watch and sit back and don't go anywhere fast, that's on you.
Right.
All I can do is do what I'm supposed to do, and I'm doing that, right? And then the third thing is, what you're doing 5 and 6 days out of the week, because we got to be on the ground and we got to be everywhere. You come walk with me and see what this walk look like. You see what I'm saying? I can show you better than I can tell you.
Right.
I will never forget who I am and where I come from because I'm always going to be the daughter of the crazy lady and the daughter of the drug addicted soldier, right? But that's okay. That's my legacy. And they fought for me. So beyond what you need me to be for you, I am the legacy of a DC soldier and a woman who had to negotiate her dignity every day for services. After doing 20 years in, which many could not have done, and came out and did 20 on the outside. I buried her 2 years ago. You live long enough, and it has to be bigger than the money. I have no idea why Ms. Bowser couldn't give us something different. Why did she have to? We didn't show up to demand that she should. Because, see, we get emotional. We like them. I asked Robert White over 4 years ago over at Woodbury Village, it's 23rd in Savannah. If you had to live like this, it would have been different. I said to Miss Jennifer Berger, who's no longer at the OAG, a Jewish woman in charge of our social justice, how in the world are you in charge of social justice when all of this injustice is being done with people that don't look like you? If my people looked like you over there, you would have been over there to clean it up. See, I've been doing the work. I just didn't chase the ambulance to tell you about it.
Right.
That's not of my generation. That's not my style. I am a Washingtonian. I came out here to take it on the chin. I'm a mental health advocate. I've got to get you guys emotional. So you're either with me or you're not. But you're going to have to deal with yourself if you end up with what you got. If you want something different, you got to do something different.
Exactly.
And I got some babies I'm holding right here. Long before I met you, I made promises to them. And they're in some unhealthy households. So I got to take it all the way. Because politics in D.C., it just hits a little different. So you stick along. Anytime you want to have me back, have me back. I'd like to sit around a group of folks just like you all, your generation, because my job is to sit there and build a respect. See, we ain't always got to be saying the same thing, but we got to learn how to coexist because we got to stop playing checkers. This is chess. These boys is on our doorstep. And see, I had the benefit of being here a little bit longer than you all. So it means that much to me.
Right.
And maybe if you live a little longer, it'll mean that much to you. And I'm from the era where you don't talk about it, you be about it. So I'm on a mission. I need you jokers to get up and figure out where you're going, and I need you to figure it out in 15 months. Because we got to save our city. Because if he strokes that pen and this mayor steps aside and goes on into the limelight and sails off mommy land, you know, which she earned the right, but I wouldn't blame her, I blame you all. Because once you learn something, you can't unlearn it. And your emotions ain't going to change a darn thing. And if you're God-fearing people, you know that the parable says the boat he sent the plane, he sent the train, he sent the bus. You get up to heaven and say, God, I was praying and asked you, it was a mess down there. I sent the bus. You didn't get on it. Because you was looking for something different. I don't know what I need to look like for you all. I don't know what I need to sound like for you all. I can't be anything other than I am. But I promise you, if I tell it to you, you can take it to the bank. Because I walk with receipts. You don't have to ask me. Exercise your democracy and start talking to your council people. They know me. I wonder why that is. You guys got to decide what you're going to do, but you can't stay on the sidelines still upset. You got to vote, and everybody you know got to vote. I got more that's not voting than that are voting. And I keep watching people that's not from this town come try to get it done, and they don't know D.C. My campaign manager, he know D.C. And he know it's weeds out there, and we got to go out there in it. Because these jokers been playing checkers. And these people then showed up playing chess. And now our young people are in jeopardy because there's no in-between. See, I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do because I ain't going to be here forever. Then it's going to be in y'all hands. Knowledge. If I leave you with anything today, knowledge. Right? And don't say it if you can't back it up. And it's always politics. But you're fortunate to live in the seat of governance where they come from all over the world to come here and try their hand. Don't let them play the game without you. That's your responsibility. Good?
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, and I appreciate this interview
No, I
so much.
appreciate you too. I'll do this any day of the week. Just know that. And I'm nobody's celebrity. I'm a homegirl for real, through and through. I've earned the accolades. I've earned the respect to be called doctor. But Rhonda's always with me, right? And I just need you guys to say, okay, you know what? Because geography is everything in real estate. Geography and timing is either going to be a buyer's market or a seller's market. But geography, if you stand on your balcony or your front porch and you got that $1 million view, you better know you got a $1 million property. You just got to make sure which market you in. Because in a seller's market and you own it, sky's the limit. In a buyer's market, you got to hold fast because might have to take you a minute to get a few buyers. You want a bidding war on what you got so that you can drive your price up, right? We should have a bidding war. It's the nation's seat of governance. They want this.
Right.
And they're going to use the politics to get us out the way. So I'm going to ask you again, what does gentrification look like without relocation? We ain't got no business running. This our fight. And by fight, I don't mean physical.
Right.
We got other skills. Right?
Thank you so much. I really appreciate this interview.
I'm a hugger, but I'm going to be very professional and shake your hand and say yes.